camera and everything?
I think so. Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Galootin.
Free.
Our show about, kind of clumsily stumbling into what we know about the world, what is right and true, and of God, and how to be a family. We have Madeline Baker here joining us for the first. Well, she's joined us in the wrap before. Now she's bright and shining, shimmering, splendid. We have Amanda and Matt, which is me. We're here to talk about suffering today.
Mm-hmm.
It's
very fitting for Lent.
Yeah, for Lent, it's a lot of what it's about. There's kind of I think a theme we all understand of really growth out of suffering.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think a lot of people don't understand necessarily the importance of suffering.
Yeah, I mean, to get right into it, 2018, both Amanda and myself lost our dads. They and had a miscarriage as well.
Lost a child.
Yeah. And so that was a time of great, suffering for us. But contemplation and learning, and it's also the time that I became a Catholic too. And
between the two dads passing.
Yeah,
right after your dad passed, which I think is much more prevalent.
Right. I was going through kind of my Catholic formation when my dad died. And both, what's interesting too, I'd say too, that we can talk about with this topic is, both our dads kind of suffered for a while in their own way.
Yes.
And
physically, there's
physically, mentally.
Your dad more so mentally than mine. Mine was more just 100% physical.
Yours had health issues, and my dad drank himself to death. So that's kind of, in a way, there was a brokenness in him that I was not able to fully understand during his life. But I think a lot of suffering, and kind of understanding suffering in terms of being the result of death and evil. It is what led me to the faith. Kind of understanding when you see this, when the rock is lifted and you see kind of the death in the world, the evil in the world, the suffering in the world, that kind of illuminated, I guess, the other side of the coin for me, which is faith and God's existence, the presence of beauty and love and goodness, and a reason to pursue it. So when you think of suffering, kind of keep that other side of the coin in mind. But what's kind of your understanding of suffering?
One thing I wanted to just kind of reference is this. I always forget what to call these things. They're the apostolic letter.
Yes,
that. But John Paul's apostolic letter, John Paul II, I should say. And I referenced this in one of my other videos, Mother's Intuition. I can't remember which one. I think feminism, I want to say. I don't remember. But the title of it is blah, blah, blah. It's to the bishops, priests, religious families, the faithful of the Catholic Church on the Christian meaning of human suffering. That's the name of the letter. And it's a very long letter, which I feel like a lot of Pope letters tend to be kind of long. But it's about human suffering and really specifically why it's important. And it talks about the different, I'm not very far into it yet, but we're working on it in my book club. But it talks about the different types of human suffering. So there's physical suffering, there's mental suffering, but really the importance of it, and that I'm getting into, is that all the suffering is good for our spiritual growth, because it references, the most recent part references Job in the Bible, and God didn't invoke suffering just out of let me prove you wrong, Satan, which a lot of people I think misdirect, and they think that that's why God did it, and it's not. Suffering is important for our spiritual growth, because God loves us unconditionally so much more than we can understand and comprehend. And the suffering is good for our growth and our spiritual growth, to be able to grow closer to Christ, because he did the ultimate suffering for us. And he took on the suffering knowing it was going to happen. Oh,
And that's a big part of it. You look at like the classic Christian / Catholic idiom of taking up your own cross, you know, intentionally undergoing and bearing suffering for, I guess, a greater good. And
it doesn't need to be like
it could be, it can be at any level. You know, Christ redeemed the entire world through His, but
it can be
we can
changing
do
a poopy diaper when you really don't want to.
Yeah.
In the morning.
I remember something I heard from Tim over at Meaning of Catholic on YouTube. Check that out. We'll post a link in the description. Hi. Prayer, saying prayer when you don't want to, is kind of enduring this little bit of suffering that is very important. It's God appreciates it, and that's really something special. One thing I had a question for you is I have a friend who basically he does not believe in God. His moral system he created what is based on just bad things are things that cause suffering and good things are related to pleasure. What do you think about that?
I think that's kind of unhealthy. I mean, yeah, you could argue, me having this wonderful baby is a thing linked to pleasure, right? I mean, that's not, pleasure is such I feel like a really kind of dangerous path to go down if you're seeking all things good or pleasure. There's a lot of things that cause pleasure, which are not good things for you. I mean, there's things, like eating a nice, delicious, juicy hamburger every day might be like, ooh, that's very pleasurable with a chocolate cake to follow and some milkshake. Yeah. But it's not good for you because going to the gym is not fun all the time. I'll be in my class and my instructor is kicking my butt and my legs are like, stop doing this. Yeah. But it's so good for you. And it does bring me a little bit of pleasure sometimes, but a lot of times I'm like, I don't want to do this. Stop. I don't want to do more squats. Stop talking. You
have then from there you get these weird equations you have to build of like, well, if I do X amount of suffering, I get Y amount of pleasure. Or if I sacrifice Y amount of pleasure, then I'll avoid X suffering.
And it's really,
the whole problem is that it's seeking to create a foundation where there is no constant.
And I feel like a lot of times when we seek that pleasure, we get, I don't know personally, but there's always going to be some time where you get a little guilt. Like, I don't know about you, but not very many people can sit around and eat a juicy hamburger, a big piece of chocolate cake and a milkshake and not feel a little bit of, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe that's the best idea. Maybe not. Maybe it's a girl thing, but you can
block it out for sure.
Binge watching, for example, that's one of my guilty pleasures, right? If I binge watch a show, for like 3 hours on end, not so much anymore, but when I was younger, some days, especially weekends, after I'd been working all week as a teacher, I'd go weekends and all of a sudden I'd binge watch a show on Saturday or Sunday. And during the time, I'd be like, yeah, just another episode. But at the end of it, you're sitting there and you're like, I just wasted 4 hours of my life. You feel a little bit of guilt for that.
Sure. Yeah. But let's bring it back more to suffering as opposed to like pleasure.
Sure.
How do you, I guess, suffering leads to growth. So what does that mean for us in terms of?
I guess I'll just refer back to our year, 2018.
Sure.
Your father passed away, which was, hard for me as your wife, and because I didn't know your dad super well, but it was just hard to see you go through that and everything. But then when my dad got sick and went in the hospital, he was in the hospital for 3 months. It was a constant fear of him dying and, or even getting better. And what are we going to do? Like, he's not going to be able to live on his own. He's going to, have to somehow make it work where he can stay with us or whatever. And then he passed, which was so hard. And then we lost a baby, which was my heart was horribly raw from that experience. At the same time, though, I think you would agree that during that time, I never felt closer to Christ, and our spiritual life grew so much. And it's hard to believe that it could grow like that, but it's definitely what happened. I mean, we grew as Catholics. Our spiritual life grew so much. We felt closer to Christ than ever. I think there's a reason for that. That suffering one of my friends, my close friends, told me, I'm a little worried that you're not doing worse than, that you don't seem as sad as I feel like you should. I'm a little worried that you're in too good of a disposition after the year you had. And yeah, that could be possible, but at the same time, I'd never felt my soul closer to Christ, and I think it's because we took our suffering and we bore it up to God, and we knew that was part of life. I mean,
Well, let's finish up.
yeah. So I mean, one of the things I want to say,
our guests can endure the suffering of a crying baby sound.
I mean, one of the things I want to say is, like, one comment one of my family members made was, "Oh, it's not fair." When it's her uncle, it's my dad. It's not fair. He just died so young. That's not fair. That's not fair. And one of the things I always tell you is, I'm like, what's not fair? My dad was 60. He got to meet his, first grandbaby. He lived a full life. He had 2 kids. He got to watch us grow up. He retired at his dream house, his cottage up north. Like, literally, yeah, there are things my dad didn't get to do, but there's a lot more worse suffering out there than what my dad went through. For other people who lose kids, or little kids who get sick, and it's, to me, you can wrap it up.
I guess to wrap things up, and you just get to experience the realism of young life. To wrap things up, the ultimate suffering, the actual firm moral basis for our existence is the intentional, everlasting suffering for eternity of hell, or the presence and the goodness of God. And that is the firm foundation from which you can build a moral basis for life. And that is, any suffering but that eternal that eternal suffering is a tool that God can use. And he used it in a big way in my life as I became a Catholic, and just in my marriage with Amanda,
And
we grew a lot from it.
I would even say, like, watching, my parent, you might want to keep this in the camera, but watching my dad suffer in the hospital,
Yeah.
you saw his faith, in a sense. He grew so much faithful. His faith grew stronger.
So,
while he's laying in the hospital bed.
You can maybe hear it, but Amanda's talking about how the suffering that her father endured helped his faith in his last days. And it was...
He had so much faith that he was going to be at peace.
He was...
Even at the end.
He was faithful that he would be at peace through his suffering. So there's a lot of lessons in there as you go through Lent. It's important to encourage everyone to embrace their suffering through Lent, but also I'm learning more that that's often followed with a caution to not be too prideful about what you're doing. Even the verse that was read in church recently is like, if you're fasting, don't appear all worn out and exhausted, because that's not what it's about. It's about enduring the suffering yourself and growing from it, getting better from it, not welcoming your pride to the suffering experience. So make sure, you're just going out after the suffering in life, because there's a lot of good that can come from it. And have a great day. Thanks for watching Gluten Free. Please like and subscribe if you feel up to it. Either way, we're just enjoying doing this. All right, bye.